The Prophet simply resented what people are doing because of his pure nature. He was an independent person. He's not just go with the crowd, so if the crowd is going to the hellfire, follow them, follow them. No, it's nothing like that. So what he used to do, as was reported, especially as he came closer to the age of 40, is to go to that cave in the top of the mountain. I climbed part of that. Actually, it's a big challenge because it's so steep, which means he was really physically fit. But that was the only place that you can go away from the hustle and bustle and parties, the discos of Mecca, you know, drinking, all that stuff. And simply, it was reported that he used to take some dates. You can survive on dates for long, really sturdy people, and water. And stay several nights there. What was he doing? The only thing was reported that he just reflects, you know, in the mountain, the night, comes away from this, a chance to reflect. And Allah prepared him for that, as he prepared Moses and all other prophets, including Abraham, that in his younger age he was a shepherd. And a shepherd, I teach a course also on the life of the Prophet, and I ask my student normally, what is the connection between being a shepherd and a prophet? Why all great prophets were shepherds? And then we analyzed what is the function of the shepherd, caring for his flock, especially carrying the young, giving them special attention. But one of the advantages of being a shepherd also, that you get in a quiet place, sometimes you're there even at night, so it gives you a chance to think and reflect beyond the box, for that matter. Until finally, Angel Gabriel came to him, of course, and he dictated to him the first few verses in the Quran, in chapter 96, verses 1 to 5, and that was the beginning of the revelation to the Prophet. So, but there is evidence, by the way, that he never bowed to any idol. And when he was traveling, even and people to ask him, say, tell us by the name of Lat and Uzza, the idols of the Arabs. I said, please don't ask me by these idols. I hated nothing more than the idols. But mind you, it is wrong also historically to think that the Arabs never recognized that there is one God. Their fatal mistake was that they took the idols as an intermediary between them and God. This is found in Surah Al-Shura, Surah 42 in the Quran, where the Quran quotes the idolaters say that these idols, we only worship them so that they get us closer to Allah. Because I said the term Allah existed in Arabic, existed in Aramaic even before Islam, because Aramaic and Arabic and Hebrew have very similar sound. In fact, the Quran says that if you ask those idol worshippers who created them, they say Allah. So they believed in the Supreme God, but again, their attention and devotion moved to the idol that they worship. They never liked them or liked anyone to swear by them. So you might say he was just naturalist in that sense. Innocent, pure, innate nature. And that was his preparation of the Prophet.
What is the punishment for blasphemy, and what is defined as blasphemy in Islam?
These are interpretations of jurisprudence that is debated. There is evidence in the life of the Prophet that some people committed what you might call it today actually blasphemy, and he did not punish them. An example of this, the head of hypocrites in Medina, by the name of Abdullah, the son of Salul, actually made more than that. Something that you can call it easily blasphemy, because he was hinting at the Prophet as a dog. Yes, سمن كلبك يأكلك. سمن كلبك. You know Arabic? Basically, the hint here say, feed your dog and he will eat you. Basically, he was complaining that Muslims who left Mecca because of persecution, and many were penniless. They came to Medina, but it was not Abu Salul. It was the Muslim community there that was so brotherly that they supported their immigrant penniless brothers until they stand on their own feet. So somehow, because he was supposed to be a king, to be inaugurated a king of Medina, he felt very jealous and hateful to the Prophet, But again, he applied the rule, if you can beat them, join them. So he joined, he was a hypocrite, non-believer. But he pretended on the surface to be. The Prophet treated him in gentleness because he accepted from him what his statements of being a Muslim, even though, of course, he felt in his heart that he's a hypocrite. But you have to treat people until evidence appears otherwise. So he was talking in this negative, blasphemous terms. And even the Prophet did not agree with Umar, who said that this person should be killed because at one point he was going to divide, to explode or implode the community from within. So these are laws that really need to be examined carefully, not in terms of mechanical legalism, but also its impact. For that, by the way, I'm not saying that because it's politically correct. You know, during the Salman Rushdie's affair, which of course was the ultimate blasphemy, quote unquote, what he's insinuating about the wives of the prophets being, you know, bad women and all of this, the prophet being false, in a joking manner even, that offended even other people of faith communities like Jews and Christians, because he referred to Abraham as B-A-S-T and it ends with D. About Abraham even. Anyway, what could be a greater blasphemy than this? And then when there was this opinion by Khomeini, Iran's Khomeini, that he should be killed, I was approached by the Ottawa Citizen to write a small piece on my reaction to this. And I opposed it in no uncertain terms. See? And they said that this is not how the Prophet dealt with it. And Rushdie even cannot be called a Muslim or apostated because nobody knows whether he's a Muslim. He came to Britain as a small child. Furthermore, he was not a citizen of any Muslim country. He was a citizen of Britain. And Britain and Muslim countries are members of United Nations and international law, and Muslims are required by virtue of chapter 5, verse 2, beginning, the first one in chapter 5, verse 1, that Muslims are obligated to fulfill their contractual agreements. So being a member of United Nations means that you cannot just go and kill some other citizen of another country or assassinate them. This is wrong. And there are other reasons I gave. Of course, at that time, I was invited to speak in South Africa by the Islamic Medical Association. And I had an interview with the national TV station and voiced this opinion. You can't imagine the big commotion that took place, that maybe some people were about to kill me for that. Consider me and, you know, this and that. I didn't care. I say the word as it is. It's not, things should not be determined just by emotion or outburst. One has to look quite carefully into the totality of the teaching of Islam, which in many cases is contextual, that you have to apply to a given situation. As the Prophet forgave people who need to be punished sometimes, because he saw that in that particular case it would be helpful, they might give a chance to repent. In other cases, punishment was made. He said there are circumstances, also extenuating circumstances, not just mechanical legalism. So the way it is done now, and no offense to anyone, because that could happen to any Muslim country other than Pakistan, is subject to abuse and defy the rules of justice in Islam. If somebody says, or two people come and say, such and such person said these bad words about the Prophet, because they have a grudge with them, is that enough to apply a severe punishment? That even if that happened, the rule of evidence in Islamic criminal punishment is very, very, very strict. The bar is very high. So there is no sense of having a law like that when there is no procedure even. I don't know even whether there is need for that law at the present time. So this is an issue. I mean, like I say, it's not the Quran says this. It's an interpretation that might have some justification in some instances. But the way it is, I'm not too enthusiastic.
What is Islamic view or opinion about capital punishment?
Capital punishment is not only in Islam. There are many states in the United States today who have capital punishment. I understand the position of human